Okay, we're recording.
Recording. So,
the
topic on hand is truly terrifying horror movies. Not movies that are terrifying because of, like, the main villain in them or whatnot. Like earlier, we said the Child's Play movies just because Chucky scares the living crap out of me and Alex. But movies themselves that set out to be terrifying and are terrifying.
Ooh, it's candy.
So, Josh, being that you brought up this question, I gathered that you might already have an answer.
Oh, absolutely not. That was just pure curiosity. Because, see, my dilemma is I'll watch horror movies and I'm not scared. Like, it's that classic thing of, like, you're watching it during the movie and later on you might get freaked out because you're thinking back on the movie. And I suppose that's kind of what horror movies go for.
Yeah, I mean, that's the truly terrifying ones.
Yeah, but I've never watched a movie that I sat through and watched and was terrified during the experience.
Well, you haven't been watching the right movies.
Well, there's a difference between being terrified and then being freaked out, because you can be terrified during a movie where you're watching something, you're like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then you can be freaked out where you're just, oh dude, I don't want to watch that. It's like, oh god, you know? It's like with the Chucky movies, like Child's Play. Like, I'll watch those movies, and then whenever Chucky comes on screen, I'm like, ah, god. You know, it's just creepy little thing, you know? And then...
That's why I never watch I hate movies like Saw, other than the first one, or the Hostel movies, just because it's like...
Gore factory.
It making me cringe from how violent and disgusting you can be. That's not, difficult. That doesn't really show skill, just throwing blood at the camera.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they had like a 10-minute segment where they were talking about, what you do when your shoulder pops out of place, or just certain limbs pop out of place, and I cringe of that. Because I'm just like, you put your foot on there, and you pull it,
Yeah, it's like you just don't want it to happen to you.
Yeah, because then you imagine it, and I have 3 words. Dislocated kneecap.
No. Nope. Nope.
There is one movie, though, that I sat through and was truly terrified throughout the entire thing.
Fred the movie?
Now, bearing in mind that I'm sure you guys know about this, but I fully 100%, 1,000,000,000,000% believe in ghosts and everything about them. Now, I didn't know that Paranormal Activity was not a true story.
Really?
I hadn't heard anything about it. Like, I had heard it's a really freaking scary ghost movie. That's all I had ever heard. And so, me and one of my friends, we're sitting in his house, middle of the night, we're home alone, in his room, pitch black, watching this movie, and I was in the chair that was on the floor, and I'm like this the entire time. Like, my eyes were huge, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god.
I've always wanted to see those movies, because I never saw them, but just from what I know of them, they seem to be right up the alley of my kind of horror, like what I find scary.
Well, I have an interesting question to ask about that. Do you ever go into a movie thinking it's real?
Well, no. But it was in that, like, documentary style, you know?
Okay.
And again, like I said, I mean...
Okay, I see what you mean.
Stuff like that,
I thought you meant, like...
And this is probably...
Because
I assume this is before, like, all the widespread hype about it and everything. You never even heard of it when you saw this?
Well, I mean, this was obviously when I was... No, it wasn't. Okay. I know
was
we're on
a
the
bootleg.
internet, but it was actually...
Oh, really?
It was actually a bootleg movie, so it was still in theaters at the time. So all I'd ever seen were previews, and the previews made it look like it was actual documentary, you know?
You know, the bootleg quality probably makes it scarier.
Probably did. Yeah. But I mean, I had seen the second and the third one, and those were just crap.
That's what I heard,
Yeah, I thought you had meant, like, you go to a movie, regardless of the movie, and you're not sure if it's real or not.
Yes, I
like, just so you know,
totally excited.
Just so you know, Cabin in the Woods, not entirely true.
I don't care what you guys say, The Dark Knight happened.
We
Wait,
not,
no, the Joker didn't die at the end. It didn't happen.
we are not taking a road trip to Gotham City. I don't have enough gas to go to Imaginary Land.
We'll get there on willpower.
Imagination.
See, I like, I haven't seen Paranormal Activity.
Neither have I.
But I love movies, if I'm correct in assuming it's like this, where it's the slow build-up of suspense. Because
it's like the only
for me, that's what
things
really
happen
gets
here
me
and
in
there.
horror movies. Like, even watching Cabin in the Woods today, the scene where I was the most terrified was the scene with the girl in the wolf's head. Because I get, like, so nervous waiting for something to happen.
The anticipation factor.
That only works if I'm pulled in. Because if it's a slow buildup of suspense and I'm not invested, then I just don't care.
Then you're just
It's
sitting there
boring
like,
as hell.
what's gonna happen? Who cares? Yeah.
Like, have you ever watched a bad like B horror movie that tries to do the suspense thing?
Oh, yeah.
And then it's just like get to it.
I'm saying, in any well-known horror movie, they know what they're doing.
Hopefully.
Generally, well-known meaning celebrated.
Did you see the Nightmare on Elm Street 3 or 4 or whatever one had the power glove?
Oh, I've seen all of them. That's number 5 or 6. 5.
I think it's 5.
I'm sure they knew what they were doing.
I think the Dream Warriors or something like that.
Did you see Star Trek 1?
Exactly.
That's not a horror movie.
But
Speaking of suspense, though.
because that's what always gets me in movies, and it's funny because we've gotten into this kind of staple in horror movies nowadays where they have the really slow build up.
What was that?
It would have been so funny if we all jumped.
Shoot. Knock my book over.
Fuck you, education.
Bend the spine back, don't you hate that? But,
Of course, when it bends the cover.
where you have the really slow build up, and then nothing. So I liked like Cabin in the Woods, how they were just like build up.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how the.
And then out of nowhere, it was the bah!
Yeah, it'd be like 5 minutes later. There's the delayed reaction. And
That's
I
how-
loved that.
that's
By
how
the
first
way, go
Alien.
see Cabin in the Woods.
Yes.
It's not what you think.
For the rest of this conversation, let's try and keep things spoiler free about that because we're discussing
topic
horror
too,
movies
yeah.
just in general right now.
Yeah.
But as you guys now know,
Yeah.
you don't want to spoil
yeah.
that to anybody because to spoil things about that movie would just I wouldn't want to rob somebody of that experience.
If we have said anything spoilers so far,
All
edit
we've
it out.
said is that it's, you get your
There's
suspense
monsters.
parts and, we mentioned the wolf.
But I wanted to.
That's it.
I wanted to make this point. Alien was that same way, where it was build up, and then absolutely fucking nothing. Like
Yeah.
I remember
Or
that.
cat.
Yeah, I was gonna say I remember that scene where Sigourney Weaver, fuck it. Sigourney Weaver is searching for the cat, and she's going through that room, and I don't know what room it was, but she's going through it, and there's all this stuff in front of the camera that you're trying to like look past and everything, but every single thing, like I remember there was one particular helmet or something sitting on a table, and the way the light hit it made it look like a face hugger was on the side of the helmet.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there watching, I'm like, oh fuck.
Okay, I want to comment on that really quick. Have you ever noticed how if you're watching a movie or TV or something, and there's things in the way of the camera that you're going, that the camera's moving around, you always seem to do yourself to do this, like you're trying to look around it, like where.
Yeah.
Move over to
Trying to
this
follow
side of
the
the TV,
camera.
I'll be able to see past it.
Yeah,
It's like when
right?
you're a little kid and
It's like you got the 3D thing coming up. It'll be possible.
it's like when you're a little kid and you see like pixelated boobs on TV. So you try, like, here's the TV, here's you like right on the edge, and if you try and angle your eye just right, you can see under the pixels.
No, I never did that.
I didn't either. I read about it in
You're a
Mad
sick
Magazine.
fuck. Yeah, bull.
No, I can show you this shit. It's great.
But back to
I
horror
don't know.
movies.
I didn't come up with it.
Yeah, I would like to see some horror movies that actually have the build up scare.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, people haven't done that ever. Like, there's always the sequence where the girl is like reaching for the shower curtain and nothing. And then turn around.
I want to see
It's either the killer or it's the best friend coming in to check on them and it's a false scare. I would like to see, killer! That like crazy just because nowadays I'm
everybody.
like, there's not going to be anything in the shower.
Psycho.
True.
I want to see the scene where she like slowly reaches toward the shower curtain and pulls it back and there's nothing. She's like, oh, okay. And then she turns around and look at the medicine cabinet mirror. And she looks into it and she opens it and then quickly closes it and there's nothing. And then she turns around and there's nothing. And then the movie's called Real Life.
I hate those shots in movies where people are standing in front of a mirror in a bathroom in a horror movie, and I'm just looking at them like, you motherfucker, don't you dare drop anything or open that cabinet to get anything. Oh, we dropped the comb, and we're picking up the comb, and there's the killer in the reflection.
It's so bad. It's to
it's
the
like-
point wherever you're watching like fucking Home Alone or something, and he opens the mirror and then closes it, and you expect to see something new. Yeah.
It's like when they bend down and the guy's already
I
behind
just
them
want to
or
know how
something.
it
Yeah.
happens. You know what I mean? Where the killer times it so perfectly. Where the person's, oh, I have to take my pills. And then the killer must be standing in the doorway just like...
Yeah.
I just love how all these killers in movies, even people like Jason Voorhees and whatnot, have this terrific sense of theatricality.
Yeah.
Where, they're in this room and they're like, alright, I can... Oh, no, wait for it.
They're always timed just perfectly.
Yeah, it's almost like it was written that way.
Or scripted.
But
Fuck you.
what are some of the truly most terrifying films ever made?
Or if you want to open it more broadly, moments.
No, well, we had opened this, films.
Okay.
Like a film where you just walked away from, or there were multiple moments in that film where you were on the couch with your legs up and your hands over your eyes.
It sounds really dumb, but there were actually certain moments when I first watched Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I think it's because the costumes and everything, where I was just like...
That's a creep-out movie just because I don't like looking at those clowns.
Yeah.
But it was never true terror.
I think it was more creep out.
It's the Chucky thing, where, I don't look at Chucky and go, ah! I look at Chucky and go, like Alex said. And I like shuddering, but I like that kind of shudder where what true terror is when you so desperately don't want to look at the TV, but you have to look at the TV.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to look
Because
away,
it could happen.
Because
you don't want to open
I
the
looked
medicine
away
cabinet.
during Poltergeist, and that came back to fuck me. We were watching, it's the scene with the clown.
Oh,
We're sitting there watching it, and I'm like, I know he's coming. I know he's coming. I know he's coming. No, I'm not looking at this part. I'm not looking at this part. I'm not looking at... No, I looked at the exact wrong time!
See, anytime I want to do something like that, like cover my eyes or something, I always look at the wall so I can still see what's happening, but I'm not focused on it.
You ever just
Smart.
whenever it's that suspenseful moment where it's the build up, and then the scare. You ever just pinch yourself and you're like, I know what's coming.
But I always keep an eye out
You can
for...
focus the jump into that pinch.
is whenever... a killer is going to strike when suddenly the camera switches to an angle where the character is all the way over to one side, or there's a huge amount of space above them in the shot. Once you see that, something's going to pop up behind
One of the
them.
worst that played with my imagination, or one of the ones that played with my imagination the worst, I should say, was from Freddy vs. Jason. And
You have lost all validity in this.
No, I'm not
conversation.
saying. I'm not saying that the movie scared me. It was just I thought way too much about it. It was some scene where the main chick, she sees the girls playing jump rope, singing the Freddy song and everything, and then out of nowhere, because she's center frame, and then out of nowhere she looks to her right, and you see her get scared, and then Freddy's face comes in on the side of the screen.
Yeah.
But what made me just freak out later was thinking, what did she see? because it wasn't just Freddy running up to her. It had to be some sort of weird, sort of like, I don't know, not like smoke monster or anything, but just some sort of like weird.
Why couldn't it have just been Freddy running up to her?
Because that just looks goofy in my head.
And that's why they didn't show it in the actual film, and they used a clever camera angle, so we didn't see Robert Englund going,
See, that's exactly what I imagined. No, but no, because in my head I was, I'm giving the movie.
I'm gonna get you.
I'm giving the movie credit where I'm assuming, whatever they didn't show is actually scary instead of ooba dooba dooba. It's not fucking Eustace from Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Of course, the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie showed Robert Englund running into the
And it was
shit going like
terrifying.
that. Yeah, of course it was terrifying then because we weren't used to Freddy, but by Freddy versus Jason,
But I mean, but
full
still,
nightmare
if you
at
go
that
back and watch the first Nightmare on Elm Street, it is a scary fucking movie.
Oh, it's a great movie. It's
And
such a
that
great
scene where he's walking slowly down the alley and he stretches his arms out,
Yeah.
to like, fucking Stretch Armstrong size.
Right.
That would be my vote for one of just the most terrifying films. Is the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
I never thought of it as one of the most terrifying, and it's probably because I saw that one a lot later on, actually.
I
I'd seen
saw
a
it
lot
later
of
on.
horror movies by the time I watched.
I say it later on too, and when I say terrifying, I'm giving terrifying a pretty loose definition.
You need to quit jumping back and forth.
Okay, creep out is the terrifying is anything else.
What is the most terrifying? Because it's funny when I think of movies that it's like, I just felt really uncomfortable watching. I'm thinking of like these creep out films. Like,
Hostel and Saw were my creep out, just really uncomfortable.
And I actually still really like both of those movies.
Did you see the latest Saw movie?
No.
I saw 1 through 3 and I gave up after that.
I think I saw like up to
It
4 or 5.
It was hilarious.
That's what I heard.
Me and the person I wanted to go see, we were sitting there laughing our asses off.
Well, that's the problem, is that when you do a movie with that many things, it stops being about being afraid of the killer and just wondering, oh, what's the killer gonna do now? Like, that's what happened to Freddy Krueger, that's what happens to all of them,
You got too many sequels.
Yeah, you cannot have that many sequels.
You know what's funny? Because that happened to Chucky from the get-go. Like, after Chucky's first scene, you're just wondering, okay, what's he gonna do next?
Yeah. And what's sad is, it does, in a way, diminish those previous films. Like, even now when I watch the first Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm not nearly as scared because I'm like, oh, it's Freddy. I know this guy so well, Look at him in his early days.
I think it depends on how much suspension of disbelief you're willing to put in to it. When I say that, I mean you're willing to forget, the fucking power glove whenever you watch the first film.
Well, you can't really fucking forget the power glove. But we need to like make a list of like since this is the starter of our conversation, the most terrifying films. Now, for me, The Exorcist is way up there.
Okay.
That one didn't freak me out that much.
I think
I don't know
I
why.
heard way too much hype about it. I think so. When I finally got around to watching it, I was just kind of like, yeah,
It's hilarious.
The movies that get me the most are movies with ideas that creep me out.
Right.
And the biggest thing in horror movies, like my least favorite thing to look at because it just terrifies me, is the idea of something being in your body that you cannot control. Alien, The Fly, Exorcist are all great examples of these. And Exorcist also because I'm a religious person, and that does add a bit of paranoia when you genuinely believe in these kind of things.
I think. Continue.
And I just wanted to say, The Exorcist for me, I will always consider one of the scariest films because it took me my entire life to watch it. I just watched it in its completion for the first time this last Halloween. I had tried like 3 other points to watch it, and every time when you first see her in that makeup, I had to turn the movie off. I couldn't even stand to look at that kid. It scared me so much and just disturbed me. On such a level, like, I'll never, you hear about that masturbation scene all the time, and then when I actually saw it, I was dumbstruck. I was just like, I cannot believe what I am watching right now. It's brilliant, but it's just like...
What do?
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about with that kind of, I would rather be anywhere right now, but I cannot look away, because it is so arresting and so brilliant, and it has terrified me so much that I am in a state of shock where I can't even fucking blink or move my direction of eyesight from the television.
I think what gets me the most, and I think Alex, you can agree with me at least to a certain extent, is innocent things used in the context.
Yep.
I.e., the little girl. The innocent little girl wearing the her Sunday best white dress. But for some reason, she's
Like
got
in
blood on her hands.
The Shining, just those two little girls just standing there.
And what's what's funny about those little kids is there's nothing particularly creepy about them. It's just that you took one element and put it in this environment and added a little sound tuning to it.
I mean, honestly, little
boom.
kids are scary enough on their own, but when you add them into a horror film, it's an entirely
Exactly.
different level of scary. Like, BioShock is a great example.
Yeah.
Because when you first see a little sister, I think everyone's reaction is like beyond what the fuck. It becomes just like the.
Like, I'm gonna leave this part of the game.
And I tell you, one of the biggest things to ensure that your horror movie will be a success is do not overly do an origin.
Do you hear that, producers and writers and directors and Hollywood?
Because, I mean, one of the big rules of the film
We know you're watching.
is the less you know, the more interesting things
Yeah.
are. That's kind of the point of a visual medium, is that things aren't supposed to be spelled out and whatnot. And so, when you think about some of the most terrifying monsters and whatnot throughout the course of cinematic history, it's the things that we don't know,
Yeah.
that are truly terrifying. And, like even characters like Michael Myers or Freddy, they start off terrifying because they were these enigmatic, chaotic figures, and then over the course of the films, they went more into the character, or into the origins and backstory. The unknown is truly one of the key elements to terror.
Like, honestly, if you want to set up a terrifying film, the first establishing shot of the film has to be the killer just torturing someone with, like, garden equipment or something, and then that's it. And then the rest of the film takes place in a fucking botanical garden or something. And you're just like, oh, I don't even know who it is, but like, you don't even get a voice or silhouette, really, or anything.
Boom, boom. But when I say unknown, I don't even mean unknown in, like, the mystery sense.
Yeah, I was just taking it to an absurd extent.
I mean, like, what's a good example?
I'm gonna try to think of one.
I'm trying to remember, does the first Freddy film go into his origins? Or is it just like...
They just, the mother tells her he was a child molester, we burned him alive, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good example. Not the best, but a pretty good example.
Yeah, I mean...
If you look at
Don't
just
get me
what
wrong,
that...
though, the new
Okay,
Nightmare on Elm Street,
here's one for you.
how they went way into his backstory, I thought that was amazing.
That was cool.
And I really liked how in the new one they actually had you convinced that he was an innocent man.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was really clever. But, okay, here's an example then. Now, this movie may be a little unorthodox, but I consider this a horror movie, and even though it doesn't necessarily scare me, it creeps the ever-loving shit out of me, is Coraline.
Okay.
And the other mother.
The other mother, yeah.
By the end of that movie, you don't know what the fuck she was. She was a witch. She was a demon. She ate souls or something like that. And, the not knowing, we kind of have this thing as a culture where it's like, they didn't explain anything. But that's what makes it so scary, is because you don't know their limitations, you don't know where they came from, or exactly what they are and what they can do.
Yeah, because it's like, every creature, I guess, has basically a stereotype. Like, if they were to say, well, yeah, she's a demon, then you know exactly what she can and cannot do.
Yeah.
Or, if they say she's a witch, it's like, oh, well, then you can kill her this way, or you can do this, and
Yeah, if
you just don't know.
If it's without
So-
definition, then you're at a loss until you're pretty much dead.
My dad, he says, I refuse to watch any kind of horror movie with a villain where if I shot him in the head, it wouldn't do anything. That's my dad's rule. He asks me that. Sometimes I show him movies like, if I shoot this thing in the head, would it die? Yes. Okay, I will watch it. That's the only reason he watched The Walking Dead. Because, it's... We want things in our little comfortable boundaries of understanding where we know how to beat them. You know, I even think of something like Poltergeist. You know, because it was a ghost, but they didn't know what the fuck to do, or we didn't know what all it could do, how it would manifest, what its motivations were exactly.
My least favorite scene in that entire movie was when, like, that mud pit thing.
The
dead bodies and everything.
Like
for me, it was the the client creeps me out, but what really got me was the guy tearing his own face off in the mirror.
The moment my childhood died was when I was really young, and I watched The Poltergeist with my dad and my brothers, and then afterwards, my brothers and I were talking about it. I was really young, and I just said, whatever, I'll just hide under my bed, he can't get me there. And my older brother says, yes, he can. And I'm just like...
I could totally see him saying that.
Because nothing could get you under your bed or under your covers. But to hear that something
check under the bed, I'm on your ceiling.
Leg hanging off the bed? It's mine.
Thanks for the snack.
Angel, stop it.
I don't know, a clown mannequin.
Get out of the house now.
That's
the call. It's coming from inside the house.
Actually, those stories terrify me more than any hour-and-a-half movie can. Because I think it's those stories, they're short, they're sweet, they get to the point. In those hour-and-a-half movies, it's just like, pathos! Fuck it. No.
Let me think here, though. What are some other great examples of terrifying movies? I was actually thinking... I keep thinking back to this one movie I saw called The Orphanage.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
I've seen The Orphan.
Terrifyingly dead.
Spoilers, but, in The Orphanage...
Should you really call spoilers on, like, a 5 or 7-year-old movie?
It's not worth it anyway.
I mean, it's not worth your time, people. But The Orphanage is about... It's set in the early 1900s or something like that, where this woman buys this old manor that used to be an orphanage. And her son goes missing. And, so the whole movie she's looking for her son, and she figures out that this place is haunted by the ghosts of the children. And, you know, the movie, you keep seeing this freaky-ass looking image of this boy with, like, a scarecrow mask on, running through the halls and whatnot. Just getting the briefest glimpse.
It actually sounds really familiar.
It's a Del Toro.
Really?
Guillermo del Toro. One of his Spanish films.
I want to watch that.
And, the whole movie convinces you that you can't really tell if they're ghosts or demons, these sprites or something, but they're scary as shit. And you know they're childlike, and this woman figures it out. So there's this scene where she's going to try and get the attention of the ghosts. And so what she does is she looks around in this empty room, and it's just pitch black, none of the lights on except like the moonlight coming through the windows. The room's empty except with all this cluttered furniture on the sides and whatnot. And she goes, "Are you ready to play a game?" Walks over to the wall, puts her hands up and goes, "Go. Stop." You know, like red light, green light.
Yeah.
Turn around, nothing. And she does this several times. And every time, the camera follows her as she turns around. And every time you're just... I just kept inching more and more up and going further and further down into the confines of my couch. And eventually she turns around, and there they are at the other end of the room. And she keeps doing it, and they get closer and closer. And I'm dying watching this. It was terrifying. And that's what I was saying earlier about how it's suspense that really gets me.
That sounds like a really good suspenseful scene.
The whole movie's great.
Actually,
really one of those great, like, atmospheric horror movies.
I don't know why I just remembered this. When I was a kid, I didn't get a DVD player for a long time. The first DVD player I got was actually my PS2.
Same here.
Yeah. So I had a bunch of these old VHS tapes that were either, just like salvaged from some sort of yard sale, or a few were bought, Or maybe even just like we forgot to return them to Blockbuster or something. But, you know, out of that came a lot of bad movies. And I remember one was called Mirror Mirror or something like that.
Didn't that just come out?
No, it was some mirror movie. I don't know. Oh, the plot was like some
Yeah,
chick.
isn't it Mirror Mirror, the Snow White Disney flick?
Oh, that thing.
I think the plot was something like this. This girl's in high school and she's on the swim team. I don't know. But she gets this vanity dresser.
Yeah.
And or it's one of those like old, you know, really long, like the one in my room, the mirror thing, like really long ones. Regardless, she gets some sort of mirror, but it's possessed with some sort of evil genie mirror thing.
Interesting.
But the demon, we're just gonna call it, gets really possessive of her and starts like, I don't even know how, but he starts attacking like all these girls that are mean to her at school. Remember, there's like, you know, the class, or you know, the classic slut bimbo. Everyone loves her, everyone hates her, cheerleader girl, but she's like the head of the swim team.
It's not her fault she was programmed that way.
She dives off the diving board at swim practice, and she comes out and she's rubbing her hair and everything. She's you know classic like 80s 90s, got a big full head of hair, rubbing her hair with a towel and everything. She goes like that, and there's just a bunch of hair in her hand, and
It gave her cancer?
and she
That's
just goes,
what I was thinking too.
and she just, dude, chemo causes hair loss, not cancer.
I know.
But she does it again, and she.
It put her into advanced stages? Oh my god!
And it just really.
It paid her hospital bills?
It really creeped me out. Just that I have no idea why, but as a kid it really creeped me out just to be like, because whenever I'd watch that scene I'd just be like, there's a single hair.
I'm saying, man, the idea of something messing with my bodily functions.
Do you remember Popcorn?
Not.
The trailer for Popcorn? I don't know if we talked about this to you, but the premise of Popcorn was this drama club in college or something wanted to renovate an old theater so they could have this like B-movie marathon for some sort of fundraiser or something. And they renovate and everything, it's all cool and whatnot. But there's some sort of like Phantom of the Opera deal going on because this place had burnt down years ago. And
Phantom of the Megaplex strikes again.
then all of a sudden,
So I
like
thought that
the the faculty of the place, the students and the teacher that renovated it, start dying, and you're not really sure how. And it, you know, one of those things where it would have been a lot scarier if they didn't give any backstory. But it's this really burned guy, and what he does is I think he like kills the people and just like skins their faces off. And he wears them and goes around. And I remember I was talking about this to you. One scene that just like, this is from a bad movie, but it's still like just really fucking creepy. It's one of the guys during the marathon is. Do what? Sick, you wanna fuck me. One of the guys during the marathon goes into the men's restroom and he's at the urinal.
Oh god.
And he just unzips and he starts peeing and everything. And then you see a guy wearing identical clothing and an identical wig come up next to him and start peeing, and the guy just turns at him and gives it. Well, I'll turn to you. Turns at him. And then he turns his body and starts pissing on the guy. But it's him. I want you to imagine that for a second. Not only did this random stranger break the guy.
Oh my
urinal,
god, you have my. That's not mine.
But anyway, just imagine that. You're in the guy's restroom, and then some guy comes up next to you, and you turn, and it's fucking you. And then he kills you, and takes your identity.
I think I know what your problem is. Watch good horror movies.
I mean these were from my childhood. And I'm just thinking on them now. But yeah.
Dude, if we could recall the Are You Afraid of the Dark stories.
Oh my
I
God.
don't want to.
Exactly!
Do you remember Goosebumps?
Goosebumps was
I could never watch Goosebumps.
Do you want
as a
to?
kid.
No, I mean just the books or the show. Do you want to know a depressing fact? I think it was a Goosebumps book. A new one hasn't been published in 14 years. How old do you feel?
I'm so old.
Same thing with like the R.L. Stein books and stuff like that. Like,
Well, R.L. Stein was Goosebumps.
not the Goosebumps stuff, but like the other stuff that he did.
He did other stuff.
I only read one R.L. Stein book in my whole life, and it was When Good Ghouls Go Bad.
Holy shit, I remember
They
that movie.
made the movie of with Christopher Lloyd.
I fucking loved that movie.
I had the VHS. I loved it too. Did a book report on it. But I could never watch Goosebumps as a kid, dude. I couldn't even get past the opening credits as a kid. I remember it scared me so bad.
That dog with his eyes glowing.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It scared the shit out of
Do
me.
you,
It was funny because they started playing Goosebumps on one of the kids' channels.
Yeah, they did that like last year, 2 years ago, something like
One
that.
time I was watching Transformers, an episode of Goosebumps came on, and I was like, alright, I'm gonna face my fears. Oh my god!
It's so bad.
Look at that!
It's so bad.
It's the same with Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's even worse, actually.
Really? I haven't seen an episode of that since I was a kid.
I actually looked up some clips from the movie. You remember the movie with those freaky ass looking horses on the merry-go-round?
Yeah.
But, those always stayed with me, and that movie was those unicorns. I was telling Josh and my parents the other day, the first real, like, movie I ever watched, like, outside of, like, your standard, you watch Wizard of Oz, and I grew up watching Batman and stuff like that, and I watched a lot of movies, but the first real movie I ever watched was Jaws, and it did scare the living shit.
That's where you
out
get your
of me.
suspension.
The first one
asphyxiation
I
from.
ever remember
that's
watching
true.
is Gremlins.
Oh, wow, yeah.
You know, Gremlins, that's funny with me because as a kid, I loved that movie. It never scared me. I thought it was hysterical. One day, I go to Blockbuster with my friend David, and his little sister calls him and says, hey, will you pick me up a movie? So we're like, sure, we'll look through the comedy and family sections, and we look and we see Gremlins. I'm like, oh my god, David, I used to watch this movie all the time as a kid. I friggin' loved it. Yeah, and look, it's only rated PG. Get that for your sister. I bet she would enjoy it. So we get on, we watch our movie, and then she asks, you want to watch this with me? So we sit down and we watch it, and the whole movie, I keep looking at David and his sister. I'm like, guys, I am so sorry. This movie is fucked up. I don't know how I forgot how fucked up it is.
Yeah, I had
remember-
nightmares for that thing for years after I saw it.
I was going to say this before we trailed off. I remember the first book I ever read was actually a Goosebumps book. It was the first book I ever just sat down in my room.
Dracula.
Actually, mine was a Dracula knockoff. It was so weird. I remember it was like these two girls, and they find this genie bottle, and then out of the bottle comes a vampire.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't remember much else from it, but
I wouldn't either.
it's like I read it when I was in the first grade or something.
I just mean, once you hear
Yeah.
vampire in a
Genie.
bottle. Vampire genie. World's fucked.
Exactly.
It did sparkle. No. I wish for more wishes. Can't do that. I wish for more genies. Fuck.
I would say Poltergeist is one of the greats.
Yeah, Poltergeist was, I don't know why. I think it may have been that short woman with the creepy voice, but that movie did always just creep me the fuck out.
Don't go towards the left!
This house is clear.
I just remember when we first watched it, I was like, oh my god, is that where that line came from?
Anytime I see that movie, all I think of is Ace Ventura.
I know! Same thing. Okay, I've only seen...
Exorcise the demons!
I've only seen it once, but 1 Hour Photo creeped me out as well.
That's a great creep out movie.
I just, the scene that stuck with me, two scenes actually, it was these scenes whenever Robin Williams was looking into the photos of the family. There was one Christmas photo where he's looking at it, and then it goes into the photo, and you see them like pose for the photograph and everything, and then the camera turns around, and you see Robin Williams sitting there with the president himself, and he's like sitting in these PJs and everything, just like. But then later on, there's this weird dream sequence where he's in this completely white room with like a white aisle or something like that, and then the camera zooms in on him. And I think he blinks and opens his eyes, and there's blood just coming out of his eyes, and then he closes or puts his hands over his eyes real fast, and then blood literally just sprays the fuck out.
What?
Right?
Yeah, I remember when I saw that, and I was just like, what the fuck? Robin Williams should do more scary stuff, because like
He does.
that
He
and
needs to.
Insomnia.
I haven't seen Insomnia. I need to.
It's actually a good movie.
Chris Nolan's first big movie.
Yeah.
And it's very good. Robin Williams is a serial killer. Go fucking figure, you know?
He's been typecast, though, so
Yeah.
that's the bad part.
But,
What was Robin Williams' big break? Or like
Comedy?
big movie?
Stand-up?
No,
it
I
was
was gonna say his
Morton
break-
Mindy. It was his TV
no,
show
his
that he
big
did.
break in movies. That's what I'm asking.
In movies was probably Good Morning Vietnam.
Yeah. Oh,
What is his most
movie?
What is his most
You
memorable?
were in more dire need of a blowjob than any white man in history.
What's his most memorable movie though?
Things like, Mrs. Doubtfire, Flubber, stuff like that. Just all. It was basically that.
It was 90s
About,
comedies.
yeah, 90s comedies.
I
Then
remember.
again, that could just be our generation.
I think Good Morning Vietnam might be his best movie. I
Yeah.
loved him in that.
I haven't seen
that.
that.
You know, and I love him in Good Will Hunting.
Morning, Vietnam.
It's not your fault. I remember watching him in Jack.
Jack was good. Jack was amazing.
Was that the one with Robert De Niro?
Was Robert De Niro.
No, that was
the one where he aged.
Awake.
Yeah, it was the original Benjamin Button.
Pretty much.
No, it wasn't that he aged. Or wait, Jack. Oh.
It was the one where he aged super fast.
Yeah. Right.
You think it's big?
Awake is the one where Robert De Niro
Fucking
is the
love that
coma
movie.
patient who wakes up. You know, he went into a coma when he was a kid.
Yep,
And Robin
loved that
Williams
movie.
is his doctor.
Yeah.
That movie rips your fucking heart out.
Dude,
I
I
forgot
watched
about
that
that
at
movie.
school.
Really?
Big fucking mistake. I was in philosophy class and we were talking something about it, and my teacher goes on this 5-minute rant to tell us about it and everything, and was like, I got to check that movie out. Oh, it's on Netflix. And I watch it during my break in between classes, and don't fucking do that. I was sitting in the lunchroom just like,
Oh, great scary movie. Just speaking of Robert De Niro, Cape Fear.
not seen it.
Did you guys ever see that? Okay, that's admittedly one where it's like Chucky, you know, the whole thing's driven by Robert De Niro, but he scared the shit out of me in that movie.
Okay,
dude.
scariest performances. Doesn't
Yeah,
have to be
we've
a
totally
horror.
gone off the whole scary thing
Yeah.
that we were going on.
I don't
But
care.
that's one that's a lot easier to narrow down.
Yeah, scariest
so I like
performances.
that. Scariest one that, I mean, Heath Ledger immediately springs to mind, but I think even more so than like Heath Ledger's the Joker, or even like all the horror movie characters.
That wasn't really like a scary.
I never really got
acting nose.
scared by
You
Heath
see,
Ledger.
it's scary in a different sense. It's that, like, for me, he terrified me because it was just, oh my god, what is this man going to do next? Admittedly, it's more of the script than it is the performance, you could say. But I will say...
Well, he can't say that.
Mhm.
You gotta admit, he can't, not playing off that he's dead, but it wasn't just script for him. I mean, it was... He put himself into that mode.
Well, yeah, you know, he did some... I'm not saying that he didn't do a great job. He did a fantastic job. I just mean that, you know, you get the scares because of the character himself.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the performance. But I think, though, I think a single character who has terrified me more than any other, it would be Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. That man... Have you ever seen that?
Oh my god.
That man will scare the living shit out of you. Every time he walks on screen, you just go... And it's funny because, you know, he's not... It's not a character where you're like... That's what's great about him, is it's not one where you're expecting him to jump out or anything. It's just... He is terrifying. You never know what he's going to do. He is ruthless as can, you know, possibly be. And just the way that Javier Bardem plays that role... Scariest... Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Dent, but scariest toy cost ever is No Country for Old Men. And another one that comes to mind is Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter.
All 15 minutes in that movie.
Yeah, and isn't that crazy that he's barely in it, but he's what you take away from it. He admittedly did get a little bit too goofy in the sequels for my tastes. A little too...
He was amazing in The Right. Did you see that movie?
No, I didn't.
Scariest performance, George Scott and Patton.
Man, it's terrifying. bastards. I just never forget that. The scene where Hannibal Lecter escapes was one of the most intense scenes I think I've ever seen. Especially when the two guards are lying on the floor and he's sitting there with all the blood splatter on him and he's just dancing to the music.
It's not necessarily scary, but one of the coolest creepy performances I saw was the actor that played the yellow-eyed demon in Supernatural. You know, the main actor.
Never really creeped me out. I always thought he was just kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm not saying I got, like, you know, super creeped out, but he did give off that creepy vibe, so I'm counting it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, shit-your-pants terror kind of performances.
Is Jack Nicholson's character in The Shining?
Oh, yeah.
Listen to David Lynch's new song. That'll shit your pants. For you.
Honey, you didn't listen. I said I wasn't going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your brains in. Bash them right the fuck in.
I can't remember.
He says that.
It doesn't really hold up anymore, but as a kid, Arnold Schwarzenegger in the original Terminator scared me.
Yeah! He's scary as hell in that movie, dude. I mean, it's not
the
really
robot that scared me than actually Arnold,
that too.
you know.
I mean, it's not necessarily... I mean, you could say it's his performance. I mean, you know, because...
Really? I mean, no offense to him.
I just love the emotionless...
monotonous,
dead persona. You know, I think that is terrifying.
This isn't a slight against him or anything. It's not to say anything bad about him, but it's his lack of performance that makes that terrifying.
Exactly. How much of that was intentional or otherwise, I don't know. But whatever he did, it worked.
Yeah. Just growing up and realizing that he was eyebrowless for most of that movie, made me laugh.
I'm gonna say two names from my childhood that still haunt me to this day. One name I can't remember, but it was that fucking bat from The Great Mouse Detective. You remember...
Oh, the little peg-leg guy?
Peg leg?
That thing was awesome!
You know, I'll tell you why it's good. You know, for most of the movie, he's like a joke and everything. I could not watch that opening scene for the life of me as a kid. Where, you know, they're sitting there in the house and showing the windows and like, BAM! He bursts in. That was the first jump scare I ever saw. And... no. And the other one... who, even to this day, doesn't scare me anymore, but I still watch it and I go, there's something wrong there, is Christopher Lloyd as Judge Doom.
Yes! Oh my god.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Right.
They just, you watch it and it's just...
When I killed your mother, and I talk just like this!
What the fuck?
What was the Nostalgia Critic review where he used that clip? Oh, that was in the Star Tracer thing, wasn't it?
He's used it a couple of times, I think.
No, it was in the Star Tracer one most recently, though.
Okay.
Well, now that we're at this standstill, I was watching our last discussion, and when we were talking about werewolves and everything, you guys remember...
What is this, the Monster Cast?
We were talking about the effects of the moon on the werewolf.
Yes.
Remember that? And whether it was the lunar radiation, or the light, or just, you know, if it had to be a full moon or something like that. And I was watching the video, and at one point you hear me say, there's one thing about Van Helsing, or something about Van Helsing, and then the camera goes to you and Andrew talking. And I never got that point out, but what I was going to say is that in Van Helsing, yes, they turn into
Ben, hang on, I want to tell you
But
about this.
once the moon gets covered up by clouds...
Exactly. It's only when the full moon is actually being shown, like, the light of the full moon.
Or it could be when the radiation isn't being blocked from...
It's clouds.
Well, I mean, would you need a constant feed of radiation, though?
Yeah, because, I mean, at that point, it's like any cloud, it'd be like, human, werewolf,
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, true, yeah, because if a werewolf was, like, running through the forest, you know, or
Exactly.
something. Okay,
Yeah, then it's like any leaf, or anyone that puts their hand in front of his eyes.
He's got, like, a human, like, handprint
5
on his
feet of
chest,
lead, you
Oh,
know,
no.
same thing. Radiation blockers. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine certainly that it's a...
That was one thing I did not like about that movie. Because, I mean, he's running around inside a fucking castle half the movie, you know? For half the time he's a werewolf. So...
It's like, you're not always going to be in the light of the moon.
Yeah. That was a quick point.
Well, we should probably move to an easier topic. What makes a perfect society?
Good night.
With
I
monsters.
don't know why, it just, like, hit me out of nowhere. Like, once you said it's 3:30, I'm like, oh, God.
See, how long is this so far? Nice, 51 minutes. Very nice. That's longer than another one.
51?
51.
Damn.
I'm impressed.
We've really been talking that long?
Yeah, I know, right?
didn't think we had.
We've been home that long?
Alright.
Not that bad. I would like... Here, I'll have a smoke. That'll keep me going for a little while longer. You want to take that out onto the porch and video camera?
Sure.
Cool. Let me grab my house shoes. Oh, they're right here.
I'm gonna refill all my Cokes.
So the conversation is moving. I guess go ahead and pause it until we get out there and get everything set up. So be right back. Now.
Just a second. Everybody, what button?
Knock.
What?
And we're back.
So, what scene, like, what are just some scenes that you specifically remember seeing from film or whatnot that did not sit right with you?
The opening scene of Superman 4 until the ending scene.
Alex?
I don't know the name of the movie, and I've never seen the movie, but there's this one scene that was going around online like a couple weeks ago. I think I showed it to you, that Suicide song with that giant guy in the pig mask.
Oh, that's the, I couldn't remember the song, but yeah, the
Suicide.
Oh, is that what they were saying?
Mm-hmm. Come boys and girls, give it a try.
I always just thought they were saying sui, you know, like pig.
Suicide.
That's really clever, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Real promotional and viral.
I don't know what movie that is, though, but I'm interested in finding out.
Nope.
Any scene from a Rob Zombie film?
Pretty much.
Like Devil's Rejects or House of a Thousand Corpses?
Dude, I will never forget watching House of a Thousand Corpses, because, like, okay, it's a crazy hillbilly psycho movie, and then you see the lair of Dr. Satan, and it's just... What? Oh, what?
I forget which one it was, but where they take those tourists hostage in their motel room.
Devil's Rejects.
Yeah, and then they make them like strip or have sex or something. I don't know.
I did not enjoy that movie. It's a well-made movie, but I cannot enjoy any movie where those are the main characters that you're supposed to root for.
Yeah.
I had a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, for me. A very important aspect of the horror film is rooting for the survivor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, having a person that you want to survive this horrible villain and whatnot. And I'm not opposed to necessarily them failing if it's done right. But I hate movies nowadays, so many horror movies, who focus on the killer.
Yeah.
Instead of making you want to fight for the victim. As, you know, even like Cabin in the Woods points out, or Scream or something. You know, there's so many horror movies where you have these stereotypical set of characters that you don't care for at all. You just know, oh, they have to be there for things to
happen. Yeah.
For things to happen. That's one thing I like about Cabin from the Woods was actually I found myself
Spoiler.
Nothing spoilerific here, but the group of characters the people going on this vacation to the cabin I thought were much more immediately likable right from the get-go than a lot of horror movie characters are.
One of them's Thor, and one of them begins the movie without any pants on. So.
Well, yeah.
That's a girl part, by the way.
Spoiler, dude.
Yeah, it's a girl part. It's a girl part.
No, it's Thor.
Well, I mean, Chris Hemsworth. That's getting edited out.
Nope, that's becoming the title of the video. The one scene that
We will
really
get so many views.
The one scene that never sat right with me was that moose laughing in Evil Dead 2.
Dude.
Have you ever seen a moose? That's a wolf.
Whatever that ferocious creature is. Yeah. And how they have, like, the Looney Tunes laugh with it, you know? Yeah, I remember the first time I watched Evil Dead 2, because I'd heard it was like, oh, it's a comedy, and it's so zany, and it's funny, and I was really young, and I was just like, oh my god! What? Now when I watch it, I laugh. You know, it's not because it's necessarily a bad-made movie, because the humor is very intentional. I just didn't really grasp that immediately.
Yeah.
There's nothing more frustrating than watching a movie with someone and they don't get the joke that you find hysterical.
Mm-hmm. Like, that's why, like, a movie like Cabin in the Woods, I could only watch with, you know, you guys.
Yeah.
Like, so many people wouldn't even get half the jokes in that, you know, you gotta be a horror movie aficionado or
at least familiar with it.
To really appreciate it, you know.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I'm trying to think of just a certain example, but yeah, there really is nothing more frustrating than not even if they don't get it. But I think it's more frustrating if they get it, but they don't find it funny. You know, when you're just sitting there like, respect it, damn it.
The only thing more frustrating than that
Don't do that with your head tilted back.
is when you're looking at a video game, at a puzzle in the video game,
Portal.
that you have already solved. When somebody else is playing it.
That's why I had to stop sitting in the room when you were playing Portal 2. Do you think you could shoot a portal on the moon? He was halfway through Portal 2, and I'd already beaten it at this point. And he's just going through a level, and I just passively ask, hey, do you think you can shoot a portal on the moon? He goes, I don't know, maybe. It just goes back to playing. And a few days later, he beats it. And the first thing he says to me, you are a fucking asshole. I felt smart.
When we go online, I gotta show you the clip from No Country for Old Men, the coin toss. Like, I want you to I'm thinking of that just on, like, terrifying scenes, because I truly do think he might be the most terrifying film character ever. Because I don't think I've ever seen a character where every single time he comes on screen, I'm like, oh my god. Because even, you know, when you watch Freddy Krueger movies or something, you see Freddy and you're like, oh boy. But...
Well, that's what I think disenchanted me about horror films in general, is because whether it follows a certain plot or not, at some level you know what's going to happen. Because, like, with Freddy, Freddy follows a certain, you know, formula.
Yeah, the slasher
you know,
films that came about in the 80s all had that routine.
Not even that, but it's just like, if it's a horror film of any type, you know whoever the camera is focusing on in this scene is probably going to die. And that's why, like, Dead Space...
and the main character gets the shit beat out of him, and then they end up surviving.
That's why,
It bugs me out in horror movies. Nobody ever seems to really flinch much at these incredible wounds that they receive. You know,
she didn't even limp.
You know? You know, it's like they get stabbed, they get mauled and everything, and then they you know, there's no screaming or, oh my god! A werewolf just took a chunk off of my shoulder. Let's keep moving.
Makes me think of that scene from The Other Guys where the explosion happens and they're just like on the ground writing in pain, you know?
Loved that. The movie industry is completely irresponsible in its depiction of explosions.
Hey, cool guys don't look at explosions.
No, certainly do not. Gotta walk away. I'm too badass to look at explosions. I see explosions all the time. They don't impress me anymore.
The back of my head, well, my back and arms, they're all burned to shit, but they're used to it. I have half a tan. Very distinct half.
Well, it's been 9 minutes and we've said just about nothing.
But yeah, what are for you guys some of the most like
Remind my dad.
gut-wrenching terror scenes
Well, that was
or
gut-wrenching.
performances?
Gut-wrenching terror performances. I don't know, I take some thought.
One, we mentioned Anthony Hopkins earlier, and it would be unfair not to mention Buffalo Bill
Yeah.
from Silence of the Lambs. That guy.
Messed up. Just beyond messed up.
Arnold
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger and Batman and Robin.
Why don't
God.
you chill? We need to cool off.
One I do want to shout out here is to Jackie Earl Haley as the new Freddy Krueger.
Oh yeah, he did such a good job.
You know, so many people were upset that Robert Englund wouldn't be Freddy again because he's the first guy to play Freddy
Yeah.
other than Robert Englund. And, man, did he knock it out of the park.
By the, I'm sorry, speaking of Jackie Earl Haley, it made me think of Shutter Island, which made me think of Leo DiCaprio's partner. It blew my mind today when we watched the Avengers trailer, and
Yeah,
I
Mark
realized
Ruffalo.
that. Yeah, it blew my mind when I realized the Hulk is Leonardo DiCaprio's partner. It made me so happy.
He's been in a lot of stuff.
I just never, you know.
Yeah. Come on, guys. I'm spewing gold here. You got to give me something.
I honestly don't know.
The entire plot of Game of Thrones is terrifying.
In a different sense, yes. That's what I was trying to think of, like No Country for Old Men. You know, movies that aren't necessarily horror can be terrifying.
That's what I'm trying to think of too, but
That's why, like, Silence of the Lambs, it's not a horror movie. It's a suspense thriller. But it's friggin' terrifying because it's so suspenseful.
Yeah.
And, you know, has a cannibal thrown into the mix.
where?
Did you have a thought?
No, I'm just thinking out loud, and I said,
He's not a very thoughtful person. His thoughts consist of
No, just my vocal thoughts. In my head, I'm solving world hunger, and, you know,
Tell
laying out
no
the-
one.
and laying out the plan for world peace. It's a work in progress.
Our conversation is more important than that.
It's probably my
Focus on the
favorite
horror
line from The
movies.
Grinch.
I'm sorry.
What?
Solve world hunger. Tell no one.
My favorite is when after the destruction in Whoville at the ceremony, when he goes, "Taxi!" and it just speeds past him and he goes, "It's because I'm green, isn't it?" I remember that was one of those jokes that, you know, when you see when you're an adult and you're like, they just made that joke in The Grinch.
The Who's understand racism. You know, that movie is just kind of like, it's not even The Grinch. It's one of those weird Saturday morning cartoon specials where an actor who plays the Grinch somehow found his way into the universe of the Grinch and replaced the Grinch. So it's this guy who has all these pop culture references inside this universe.
What?
Did you ever watch the 90s Spider-Man where there was like a bunch of different Spider-Men and then one of them was the actor who played Spider-Man?
Yeah.
That's what the Grinch is.
So,
I can...
you basically mean it's not The Grinch, it's Jim Carrey in that movie.
Pretty much.
I said it in a more eloquent way.
No, you said it in a desperately trying to be Inception kind of mind-bending kind of way. Just say it's Jim Carrey in The Grinch.
And we're inside now.
Okay, since horror movies is kind of drying up.
Yeah.
What's another topic?
I suppose I should sit on the couch.
Here's one. Just speaking about that green joke and the Grinch. What are some moments from kids' movies that had entirely different meanings when you saw them as adults?
Well, there is one thing. When they're asking, like, what do they do?
Oh, yeah. Well, there is one thing we haven't done today, Christopher Robin. I mean, like, intentional.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I watched The Hunchback of Notre Dame again in high school, and I was like, oh, so that whole song, Frollo song, was about wanting to rape a girl and send her to hell. Well, okay then.
Any joke from Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Basically. Patty cake.
Oh
You remember
my
that
God.
Did not understand patty cake when I was a kid.
You remember, I'll never forget that really awkward transition of, I watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit 1,000 times as a kid growing up. You watch it, and then one day,
It just
you
clicks.
watch it again, and you realize, Jessica Rabbit is sexy. That moment where it clicks.
Where you're kind of, like, embarrassed to watch it in front of your parents. You
Yeah.
know? I'm not looking at this.
I'm pretty sure Jessica Rabbit invented hentai.
No, that was Sailor Moon. But sad.
I'm gonna go that far, go back to Betty Boop.
True. Yes.
Who was in Roger Rabbit?
Who
Full
was
circle.
in
Like I'll never, or even in a Goofy movie. There are a bunch of those kind of jokes in that movie. I'll just never forget the one where Max is in the possum farm and
Oh,
is a living, and
God.
the guy comes up behind him. Hello, little buddy.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, they had a lot of those, like, where it was, they go to say something and then they say it, but it's like that is living hell, little buddy.
Yeah.
They had a lot of those back then.
If you got it, flaunt it. Show your assets.
Anything in the Animaniacs.
Oh my God.
No.
Fingerprints. Fingerprints.
Oh, okay.
Jeez, lady, what else you keep in there?
Wacko.
Good night, folks.
Do you know how to conjugate? Lady, I haven't even kissed a girl yet. Here, come up front and I'll show you how to conjugate. Good night, folks. I love, in one, it was like a Thanksgiving episode where the pilgrim's talking to him. He's looking for a turkey. He tells him, "Give me the bird." And they go, "We'd love to, but the Fox censors would never allow it."
Okay, hang on. Oh God, I just found a wiki of adult humor in Pixar films. Adult humor in Pixar films, and the number one, it just goes in chronological order. One of Sid's toys, a fishing rod with Barbie legs, is a hooker.
Life irrevocably changed.
My childhood. Keep them coming.
Yeah, I want to hear these. Read.
I'm trying to find a good one. In one scene before Woody calls them from Sid's house, Mr. Potato Head and Ham are seen playing strip battleship.
Oh my God, they are.
They are.
After Buzz tells
Oh my
Woody,
God.
After Buzz tells Woody that he can fly around the room with his eyes closed, Woody calls Buzz Mr. Lightbeer.
Yeah.
Never knew that. Let's see, A Bug's Life. During the circus scene, one of the flying brothers says to Francis, thinking she's a girl, "Hey cutie, want to pollinate with a real bug?" He may have been talking about sex. Maybe.
Oh yeah, and I do remember where Woody is saying he's talking to Buzz, And Buzz is like, what would you call me? And Woody says something like, well, there are a couple of words that come to mind, but there are preschool toys here.
When Buster runs into Andy's room, he knocks down a log cabin playset. When he knocks it down, it's shown that Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head are having their own quote-unquote fun. When the toys first encounter the Barbies in Al's toy barn, they gape at them as if attracted. Later, when when meeting tour guide Barbie, Mr. Potato Head reminds himself that repeatedly under his breath that he's a married spud, meaning that he doesn't want Mrs. Potato Head to think he's cheating on her. Man, these just spell it out.
Yeah, these are like the first one was good, but
that's why I had to proofread them.
I'm not gonna get over that anytime soon. Oh my gosh.
So this is getting progressively boring. I'm sorry.
You guys vamp. That's what it is, vamp.
Vamp.
Yeah, that vamp. It means, fill the dead space while I look up something.
Oh, dance with me.
Finding Nemo. Don't you people realize we're swimming in our own? Shh! Here he comes.
Oh, I didn't remember that one. I was trying to think of some from other Disney movies and whatnot. I'll never forget when I finally figured out what they were talking about when Scar is singing the "I've Got a Lovely Bunch of Coconuts."
One of the
Lion King,
in The Incredibles. One of Syndrome.
Remember that?
I remember when he was singing it.
Scar, I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts. It's Monty Python. It's a song about boobs.
Yeah.
Okay. In The Incredibles, one of Syndrome's security guards watching the Omnidroid attack says, "Okay, every time they run, let's have a shot."
Really?
Apparently.
Okay, when was this?
In The Incredibles.
Yeah, and when they're what?
It just says one of Syndrome's security guards watching the Omnidroid attack says, "Okay, every time they run, let's have a shot." I don't know.
Huh.
Probably that scene where they're all in the RV. Watching that thing destroy the town right before he goes.
Right.
Somebody up. Probably. My guess. I don't know.
On Linguini's first day in Ratatouille, first day on the job, Chef Skinner greets him in a sly manner by saying, "Welcome to hell." I've never seen Ratatouille, so...
Really?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Skinner gets Linguini drunk on wine. For kids. The sign... Okay, in Cars.
You've seen Ratatouille, right? Mm-hmm. The guy who voices the bad guy, the little chef? Bilbo Baggins.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, he's in a ton of movies, but that actor, that alien from hell, those are the movies I was thinking of.
In Cars, the sign to top-down truck stop says all convertible waitresses.
Topless.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Huh. Well, there's one redeeming quality about that movie.
There's a "For the Love of Chrysler" line.
Yeah.
He did what in his cup?
They have that on here.
Oh, yeah. I want to show you that scene.
Vamp.
So what do you guys think? What is our next topic? What do we talk about?
We look forward to hearing from you. If you think we should talk about boobs, press or
here.
dial 1. If you think we should talk about the Catholic Church,
Press here.
or if you think we should talk about how much Batman sucks,
Press here.
or Ben's face.
It better be one of the first two options, you fuckwads.
There were 3 options. Boobs, Catholic Church, Batman.
Yeah, I said one of the first two.
I suppose I'll put annotations there, so you guys can actually click. You do that again. I don't know.
Yeah, just go in and edit out all the boring parts of this conversation.
I'll just put like transitions.
Transitions.
So are we done recording?
I think we are.
Alright, well, it was a fun conversation. It was decently long. I guess that's it. Again, we need your input so we know what to talk about. Go check out the other channels. Links in the description. So yeah, links in the description. Go check them out. See you later. Say goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye now. Goodbye. Goodbye now.
Goodbye, rationality. Goodbye.
Video go down the hole. Nostalgia. Kick it in.
Puts lotion in the fucking basket.
Puts the fucking lotion in the basket.
I'd kill you, but there's someone at the door.